around America that the colleges don't reflect either the Christian faith that built them or the country that funds them. And the big schools back east, the Ivy League schools, are promoting Marxism and Nazism and everything else. They like to call everybody Nazi, but in reality, they're the ones that are teaching and training and promoting it. And if you read on, I was actually reading a little bit into the history background of public schools, and the man who brought the idea of public schools was from Argentina, but not originally. He's originally from Germany, and he fled Germany after World War II. They ended up in Argentina, and they designed government schools down in Argentina, and they brought that up here during the 19th century. So he didn't move down there after World War II. They were already established in Argentina. But a lot of the Prussians went there. Anyway, I had his name. It's all public record. I mean, it's not hard to find that information. But he set up his philosophy of education at Columbia University, where almost all public school principals and superintendents received their doctorates originally, and the ones that are teaching in the smaller colleges were trained in Columbia University, because that was the place where you get a doctorate in education in New York City. So it's very interesting how that all came about, but and people still don't quite follow that. I've been thinking, as I read, recently I reread C.S. Lewis's The Weight of Glory, and I was just fascinated by that. I was going to read some parts out of it, and obviously, I mean, couldn't find the book this morning, but it doesn't matter. So I was thinking of Psalm 8, and because I had that, I talked a little bit about the Roman road last week, and why most evangelical evangelistic tools start with sin, and we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and everybody has. And I know that, but that's not where it starts, because if you don't know why we're here, you're not going to know what sin is. Most people think sin in that context of evangelism is an act of breaking a moral code. And that is certainly sin, but that's not where the word sin in both Hebrew and Greek does not come from breaking a code or violating a law. And because people sinned a long time before there was law. And if you don't follow the concept of sin and understand what it means, then because the law came with Moses, and Cain killed his brother, and that's a sin, but there was no law against it at that time. Actually, that's the very first law. Where it is written? The law against killing? Even before Moses. Who knows where it is? It's Genesis chapter 6 or 7. It's after the flood. Yeah, it's after the flood. Thank you, Debbie. It's 9. Correct. Chapter 9. And that's where God makes it against the moral code to kill, and it says you guys have to deal with it. he put in, I'm not going to deal with it, you guys are going to deal with it. You have to work that. So that's where that comes from. But I was understanding in Psalm 8, you have this, how majestic is your name in all the earth. In fact, who wants to read Psalm 8? Got it right in front of you.
Our Lord, how majestic is thy name in all the earth, who hast displayed thy splendor above the heavens. From the mouth of the infants and nursing babes thou hast established strength. Because of thine adversaries, make the enemy and the revengeful cease. When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou dost take thought? And the Son of Man, that thou dost care for him. Yet thou hast made him a little lower than God, and dost crown him with glory and majesty. Thou dost make him to rule over the works of thy hands. Thou hast put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, and the fish of the seas, whatever passes through the paths of the seas. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is thy name in all the earth.
So here we have this psalm. He doesn't start this doesn't start with man being a sinner. And but we have equated the word man or human with sin. And I want to today I just want to focus on that concept. Is that what we embody is sin? And it's so popular that, there's a couple of popular songs. I was singing them to myself the other day, but one of them is, I'm just human after all. I'm just human after all. It's a really popular one that's on competition, the I'm just human after all. And the second line is, don't put the blame on me. I'm just human after all. Don't put the blame on me. And so, but see, that's not a biblical concept. We're given, if we go back to Genesis and we look at the creation, right, and see how man was made and to what was his purpose, which we know that, right? That we were created in the image of God. We were created and we were created both of. God is not, and here you have to understand the concept of God. God is not male or female. God is God. God is a different category than man. And Paul addresses that in the book of Romans. He says, we all know that God is divine image. Now, the only thing that I've thought a lot about these, that we know that God is eternal, powerful, invisible, and a divine nature. Now, and so a lot of times in the Gospels you hear God is not a man. That's how it's put. So the divine nature can be easily defined as God is not us. He's not man. He doesn't sin. He's not short on anything. He's not short on energy or balance or whatever. He's not us. So, and that's clear to everybody. I had a T-shirt. It's full of holes now, but it said, there's some things are quite sure. There is a God, and it actually says you're not him. But actually something that's more sure than that is I'm not him. I know there's a God, and I'm not him. I don't know about you, for sure, but I know I'm not God. And so the divine image is really that he's not us. And we know that. We even put it on popular T-shirts. And we write songs about it. But we also know that we are fallen, and we know that. We know everybody is fallen, and we sing songs about it. we do all kinds of things, and but we like to add to those songs, like the modern song that's playing right now is "Don't Put the Blame on Me." I'm just human, so don't put the blame on me. But I am human, but I'm not made to be a victim. And that's what that song is about. Is I'm not taking the responsibility for that. I'm just a victim. You could even sing it that way. You can say, I'm a victim after all. I'm a victim after all. But the Bible doesn't start there. The Bible starts is that we're not victims. We are in charge. That is a difficult concept for Americans to get a hold of. I'll never forget reading, not when I read it the first time, but when I studied it the first time, was the second little black book called Entrance of Sin. That blew my mind away, even more than moral government did. Because I realized reading it, going through, that nowhere in the Bible, nowhere, does it put the blame of sin on God. It's always on us. And nowhere in the Bible does it say we are found guilty. We are judged because we're humans after all. Nowhere does the Bible have that concept. That, we're just humans after all. And humans just sin. That's their nature. That's what they do. Humans sin. That's what they do. No, politicians sin, and that's what they do. But we're not sinners because we're human. We're sinners because we've chosen that. And, I remember a mom, I wasn't married then, but I remember mom coming up to me and saying, you're teaching the kids this stuff. And I said, yeah, we are. I said, don't you think they're going to feel really responsible? Yeah, I think they are. They still are. I've been doing it now for 50 years. And you wonder why the young people in this ministry, you can spark revival here. You come in. I have pastors that love to come down and help me because they've never seen a ministry. You just walk in, light a match, and there's a fire. I'm serious. I've had guys say that. I want to come down and do some ministry with you because they love to see that, and they don't see it. And people talk about it, we believe it, but they'd like to come here because they get to see revival, just light. We flick, we scratch something, and there's, the kids go. I remember it happening in the school even. The children. See, a couple of years ago, well, no, it was more than a couple of years ago because they're adults and have kids. But they came in and watched a chapel, and it was the little kids' chapel. All the big kids were in the back. All the little kids were up front. Diane had done something. I don't remember what it was. It was, and she asked the kids how many wanted to come to Christ. They all did. All the hands went up. And we don't usually, okay, everybody bow your head and repeat this. No, we don't do that. We want to see real fire and smoke. We want to see the whole thing. And so she sent somebody back to bring the high school, middle high school up. And so they brought them in, and they said, all these little kids want to come to Christ. Lead them to the Lord. So they all divided up, and a mother came who didn't have kids here, but she came to just watch the chapel. She wanted to see what we did. The next week, her kids were here. Now, so teaching that men are we, mankind, which includes Ish and Isha, both, you, mankind is not a word for a gender, it is a word like human. Now, humankind is like human, so you don't get away from it. But anyway, no matter what you do, you still have one word that refers. People is probably closer to the Hebrew Adam than anything. People, the word people. I'm not sure, I would translate all the word man because it gets confusing. I think it's just important. I think kids can understand. You understand that, don't you? You don't struggle with the word man, that you think it only refers to ish. See, they understand it. They understand that God made man, and that means them as well. Not only did he make man, but he made all of us people in his image. Now, that means we're image bearers. Now, and if you go to chapter 2, it gets a little more specific because he formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And he became a living being, is numeric standard. But the word being there is nephesh, which typically is translated soul. And the breath there is a ruach, which is spirit. If it was translated into Greek, it would be pneuma. Now, and the other one would be psychos, which we get psychology and all those words, okay? Now, we are made in the image of God, and we're made with dirt. In fact, you can actually analyze that scientifically, because when we die and our soul, spirit goes back to the Lord, there's a pile of dirt there, okay? Literally. Now, it's interesting, but he made us spiritual beings in his image, because he does, we are, and the word that's used for it today is conscience. We're conscious beings, and the big push, I've discussed this earlier when I was getting ready to write a letter to Ruth on that concept, and so I talked a lot about it here, but that it used to be, in fact they still do, the whole scientific community is divided in half. And there's this side that says that the soul, or the consciousness of man, of people, is emerges out of the electrical charges of all of the electrical stuff going on in your brain. And when you have billions of neurons firing, then consciousness emerges out of that. But a lot of scientists, I'm a people studier, by the way. I don't study science because I can't read math. Okay, understand that, kids? In order to study science, you have to read a language of science, which is what? It's math. Okay. And I've tried several times to get back into math. And if you go back in my study, you'll find little math books all over the place. But believe me, I'm not going to do it now. So, but the scientists, I study people, and I've studied online. I've listened to lots of debates. Not that I understood all the debates, but what I do understand is that they disagreed. Okay? And on one side, they say it's the old traditional view that consciousness emerges out of the electrical charges in the brain, okay, somehow. And they all differ on that, by the way. But on the other side, you have two groups of people that have joined hands. You have MDs and you have PhDs. And they have decided, and for different reasons, okay? The PhDs have decided that consciousness exists in and of itself, and for mathematical reasons, which I cannot explain to you. But I listen to them try to explain it to other people. So I know that's what they're doing. I know enough math to know that they're actually doing math. And they said you can't get consciousness out of electricity, okay? You can't. So, okay, so we got that far. On the other hand, you have the MDs, and they go, okay, we are very scientific. We have scientific rooms with scientific equipment. And, when that little pile of dust quits doing its thing and interfacing with the earth, all of our equipment in our hospital rooms, they flatline. That's what they call it, flatline. It's literally a little line on the face of all of their equipment that shows the electrical charges and impulses of various parts of the brain, various things, the heart, the brain, the breathing, everything. When they all flatline, they say, okay, that person's not coming back. The problem is they often do. Okay? That's the problem with it. And so if, and this to me is just logic, it's not math, it's logic. If electrical charges create consciousness, consciousness emerges when those electrical charges reach a mass. It has to reach a large mass. When it reaches a large mass, then the consciousness appears. Okay? It just, there it is. The problem with that is this MDs, the doctors, have the equipment to show. They're looking at machines. They're not looking at preachers or, or evangelists or anything. They're looking at machines. And the machines say the person is flatlined all the way around the room, which means this machine, this machine, this machine, and that one over there. Okay? So they're flatlined all the way around the room, and then they come back. Okay? So that cannot be that the consciousness emerges out of the charges in the body itself, because there aren't any. It's really simple. But then if you're committed to that, then you're going to, oh, wait a minute, we have capacitors. They hold charges, okay? So the body can hold charges, okay? So that's the next way they go. I'm not going to go any further with that because I'm not talking about that today. So, but I'm talking about people. Our consciousness, our soul is not, comes from God, and it depends on because it's in the image of God, it can survive its interface with this place, which is temporary. Now, if our soul survives that, and our soul is which is what these MDs, this other side of that argument, are arguing, that the soul is what gives life to the equipment that interfaces with this planet, okay? Now, we have equipment that interfaces with, now it's you, okay, and your body. And in some ways, we can't talk that way and biblically, because your soul and your body become one. They're not they're inseparable. In fact, the fact that they can be separated to Paul is a very unnatural and uncomfortable situation. He calls it being naked and being without your connections with the real world. And that's why he says in Corinthians 15 that we will be clothed. We will put on that thing. Now, we're made in the image of God, so we're not, even without our soul, you can't really differentiate between us with our body and without our body, but it does. In heaven, we won't have this body because it's dirt, okay, literally. And because the dirt won't interface. The Bible talks about the dirt cannot inherit eternal life. The body cannot inherit. Now, your body is going to inherit eternal life, but body's different than flesh. Because flesh is made of dirt, and body, I don't know what it's made out of. It's a consciousness. But, in all of the near-death experiences, people talk about, when they meet people, they recognize them. Okay? Now, is there a biblical reference for that? Yeah, in 2 Corinthians, Paul, he goes, when he talks about his near-death experience, which I call them after-death experiences. I quit calling them near-death experiences. Because as far as we know, from this point of view, they're dead. So that's not near death, it's pretty dead, okay? And when they come back to life, it's not near death, it's after death, right? So that's why I call them after-death experiences. But Paul had after-death experiences because he was stoned to that condition several times, okay? You understand what I'm talking about, Paul? When he was preaching the gospel, he got stoned. And other people get stoned in other ways, but he was preaching the gospel and was stoned and had a death experience. And in that death experience, he talks about it. And he can recognize, he sees things. Things have a metaphysical appearance. They're not flesh, because flesh is what? It's dirt. But they do have soma, body. They don't have sarx, flesh, but they do have soma, body. So it's a little difference. Well, it's quite a bit of difference between sarx and soma, okay? So soma sometimes is compared with the word soul, okay? So you get that in that. Now, Jesus says, he said, I will go, this is in John 14 or 15, he said, when I go away, I will make a dwelling place for you. I go to prepare a place for you to dwell. Now, he's not talking about a house. Although, it's also, that reference is also in the book of Hebrews, and where they talk about the cloud of witnesses in there, and there's a reference to the dwelling place. Now, what he's talking about there, what Jesus is talking about in John, and what is also referred to in 1 Corinthians 15, and also again in Hebrews, is that we have a dwelling place, a soma. We put on our dwelling place, so that we can exist in heaven and interface with the world, the metaphysical world of heaven itself. Now, when we're going to get into this, I've been reading on that and got some new information. So one of my Greek teachers wrote a commentary on the book of Revelation, and he's the kind of guy that likes to write a lot, and so I'm looking forward to that. Grant just went home. It was my professor, but he's the only professor, he's one of a few professors there at Trinity that believed in free will. So I was able to become really close friends. Grant is also the person I wrote my papers on omniscience and time and stuff, and which is where I got my reputation as being one of the top students there, when I was actually the bottom student, probably the bottom student. But I've always done that. So I like that place. I like it. I like the bottom. I'm very comfortable down there. So, that's very biblical. You know that. Because when I go to, it just doesn't happen to me all the time. But when I went to NNU, at the last meeting I had up in NNU, I didn't know anybody. And, but I knew Dr. Randy Maddox, who was one of the speakers, and I knew Dr. Mike Lodahl, who was one of the speakers, and I just met Dr. Ord, who was one of the speakers, and so I just sat at the speakers table, because I didn't know anybody else. But that's what happens to me. That's what happens when you're always on the bottom, but people think you're on the top, and that. So I went to, I want us to see that when we are made in the image of God, we're made to rule, and we're had to have dominance over the planet. Now, if you read, we're not going to read this, but you all have read it, chapter 3 in Genesis, where Adam and Eve give their authority to the serpent in the garden, and he has it from that time on, because they gave it to him. Okay? And they were moved out. He said, look, man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Now he might stretch out his hand. Now notice the conditional statements here, because they turn into negative when they're like that. Okay? That he might stretch out his hand, which he's not going to, okay? And take also from the tree of life and live forever, which he's not going to. Okay? Because of the conditional statement. Now, so he drove him out of the east of the Garden of Eden, and he stationed the cherubim and the flaming sword which turns every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. Now, you know what the seraphim are? Those creatures that got eyes all the way around them and got wings and have that sword with them. I wouldn't do it. Wouldn't try it. So, but the reason we don't have, now when you go to I want to read this, whoever's writing, which I think it's Paul, but that's okay. We can all differ on that. That's one of the things we have. Freedom of speech and belief. You can believe whatever you want about the cherubim. That's fine. You can even Nephilim. You can believe whatever you want. If you want to think they're angels, that's fine with me. I don't care. Because you know what they were? They were whatever they were. Okay? And whatever they were is what they were. And so I don't want to be wrong on that particular question, so I'm just going to not touch it. But I do believe that they weren't angels. I don't hold that. But now, so I'm looking at Hebrews. I keep flipping over it. So I'm thinking of too many things at once. In Hebrews, you have this same passage. Okay, thus you have the Psalm, right? He did not subject. This is in chapter 2, 5. He did not subject the angels to the world to come, concerning which we are speaking. He has a lot of angels, by the way. And like I said, there's a lot of kinds of angels. Not only are there a lot of angels, but they have different functions and they look different. They are like the cherubim. They don't look like anything like an angel, okay? But they're very interesting. He has angels that are called archangels, and some of them are named, okay? Lucifer was a very high up angel, maybe similar to an archangel. Who knows what the archangel's name was?
Is it Gabriel?
Not an archangel. What is Michael? What is Gabriel? He's a messenger. Remember, he got mad. He said, I stand in the presence of God. He's a messenger of God. He's not one to trifle with because he knows his position. You know. So, but there are the question, does the Bible answer the question, do angels have wings?
They do.
Where, Nancy?
Well, like the seraphim.
Yeah, that's very good. There's another group of angels that have wings. Those girls are in Revelation. They not only have wings, they have gender. Yeah. They're in the book of Revelation. Remember, they take the girl in the pot, in the container. They put a lid on her, and the angels, the women angels with wings, they take her and they fly away with her. Remember that? You've read that? No, you guys have. Okay. Now, I've thought, are they good angels or bad angels? No, they're just angels. But I don't know. They do what God wants them to do. That's, but they have wings. And they were called women angels. So, and that, what is Michael's primary task? His number one? That's right. He is the archangel, but he's the specific angel for the land of Israel. And do we have angels here? I believe we do. I believe there's a turf angel here. I think he puts his image all over the place, doesn't he? And the fact that he has an image put up and it's gilded in gold tells me what kind of angel he is, doesn't it? If an angel makes an image of himself and gilds it in gold, you know what kind of angel he is. Come on, girls. What kind of angel is he? Can you make images of yourself and put them on top of temples? Can you? No. I mean, the angels that talked to John, which is probably Gabriel, when John tried to bow down to him, no way. They wouldn't even let him bow down on the ground, even though he was collapsing from the weight of the presence of the angel. Still didn't get away with it. Not dying in front of me, boy. Get up. And that happened. What other prophet did that happen to? Isaiah. Same thing. When he fell down before an angel, the angel shook him up. So do you think God's angel is going to put his image on top of a temple and gild it in gold? No. That is a certain kind of angel. It's a fallen angel. It's interesting that he names himself Moroni, because I in classical language mean my. Okay, it means it's the first person possessive, and moron means what? My stupid people. That's just my interpretation. You can have your own. Okay, now. So let's continue in Hebrews. For he did not subject to angels the world to come. Notice that. Not subject the world to come, concerning which we are speaking. But one has testified concerning him. What is man? What is man? That you should remember us. Or the Son of Man, that you should be concerned about him. You have made him a little lower than the angels. Now, in the Greek, it uses the word angel, but the Hebrew word uses the word Elohim. Okay? That can be confusing. But Elohim is a general term for a high-level being. Okay? Elohim can be a judge, it could be an angel, it could be God. Now it's referring here to us. You have made man, that's both of us, for a little while. Notice that. Been quite a while, but that's my interpretation. His interpretation has been a little while lower than the angels. Now notice that statement. We are for a little while lower than angels, messengers, servants of God. You have crowned him with glory and honor. That's those of us who follow him. And have appointed him over the works of your hands, right? That's in Genesis. And you have put all things in subjection under his feet. Now, even the writer to the Hebrews has a problem with this. He's reading it and going, wow, that's not my reality, but I believe you, Lord. So he has this. For in subjecting all things to him, he left nothing that is not subjected to him. But now we do not yet see it. See how he says that. We do not yet see all things subjected to him, but there's a big connection here. We do see him who was made a little lower than angels, namely Jesus, because of the suffering and death, crowned with glory and honor, so that by the grace of God he may taste death for everyone. For it is fitting for him, for whom are all things, and through whom are all things, in bringing many sons and daughters, we'll put that in there because I believe that is there, brings many sons to glory, to perfect the author of their salvation through suffering. For both he who sanctifies and those who are sanctified are all from one Father. If I had a pipe, I'd put that in it and smoke it. But I don't. Okay? For which reason he is not ashamed to call them his siblings, his brethren, sister. Now, he says, I will proclaim your name to my brethren. In the midst of the congregation, I will sing your praise. And again, I will put my trust in him. And behold, I and the children whom God has given to me. So when Jesus returns to the Father, he brings his siblings with him. He brings us with them. They're really fascinating things. And these people are for a little time lower than the angels, but not forever. For they will be our servants. They're made for us. They're actually our servants now. He continues that. Actually started with that. Are they not all ministering? This is 1:14. Ministering spirits sent out to render service for the sake of those who will inherit salvation. They're our servants. And it's hard for us. We don't see that now. at least, some people actually get to see it, but like Mary and Joseph, but he will see that. They are ministering spirits sent to render service. There's a lot of different kinds of angels. I've just been thinking about it. And I'm sure, there's ones that sing all the time. They worship before the Lord night and day. And I personally believe there's harps and trumpets. We know that, right? Because some of them get extra duty and get to travel around the world blowing their trumpets. So it's an amazing thing to me. So when I start the Roman road, that's why I start with Psalms 8. That's why I started with Romans 1. For all things are clear to us. We know the truth because we're made for it. That's what we're made for. I wish I found, I kept track of it because I knew on this day I would have a hard time finding it, which I did. So that's no big deal. But, in the weight of glory, understand this. Most people think of glory as effervescence, as light, and like the sun, the glory of the sun and whatnot. But actually the glory of God is the presence of God with his people. Okay? You see, where do a lot of the word glory, where are a lot of those concepts, where do you find those in worship? You find them in Christmas songs, incarnation songs. So the glory of God is the mystery of God, which is him, was the mystery is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Christ in you, the hope of glory. So the glory of God is his delight in being in the presence of his people. We are the glory of God. Because, as he says, we are the temple of God. And so why hamartia means missing the mark, hitting it, being off target, not being what you were planned to be, not being what you were called to be. You're missing the mark. You are and will be inheritance, the children that inherits the universe that was created. Now it'll be a little different. We'll get into that when we get to that passage in Revelation. So I'm still thinking about it and looking into it. But we're still going to be, he charged us with in Genesis to take care of what he created for us. And at that time it was a Garden of Eden. And down here, we're still going to create it, and we're still going to be in charge of it, and it's still going to be the Garden of Eden. So it's not this place now, because it's not the Garden of Eden. All you got to do, if you don't believe it, go out here in the parking lot with your bicycle, okay? And you will learn that it's full of thorns and thistles, okay? But someday it won't be, and that's when we will inherit it. And I love this statement that he has in The Weight of Glory. He said, you need to realize inside of your mind when you're sitting here together that you're sitting next to immortals. And with that, let's go to communion.